Welcome to Chapter 5, Section 3. This lesson will be done in two parts. For Part 1, our objective is to learn to compute one-step conversions. Our essential question, what is a conversion factor? Conversion factors. You'll find a list of these in your notes that we'll fill out in a second. You can also find these on the Moodle under Section 5.3 or look it up on the internet if you can't find it anywhere else. Let's fill in some conversion factors. We have blank inches in 1 foot. These are common ones that you should be pretty familiar with. 12 inches in 1 foot. There are 3 feet in 1 yard. One that you may not know, but that's going to be very important for you to memorize, that there are 5,280 feet in 1 mile. There are 60 seconds in 1 minute. There are 60 minutes in 1 hour. There are 24 hours in a day. And to get this seconds in an hour, 60 times 60, 3,600. Letters C and G are two that you may not be as familiar with that you need to make sure you have memorized before you get to the quiz or the test. Anything that's not in this list is something that, if it's something you need to convert when it's not in the homework, if it's a quiz or a test, we'll make sure to probably give that conversion factor to you if it's not something you see here. When you're working on the homework, you'll have to look those up yourself. The process of converting from one unit to another is called dimensional analysis or unit analysis. This is important to hear and see, but you don't need to write this in your notes. To convert units, multiply by one or more ratios of equivalent quantities called conversion factors. An example of a conversion factor: to convert inches to feet, you would use the ratio of 1 foot to 12 inches. This ratio is a conversion factor because it's the same as multiplying by 1. The reason is that 1 foot is the equivalent of 12 inches. So these could be all equivalent: 1 foot to 12 inches, 12 inches to 12 inches, 1 foot to 1 foot. They all equal 1. So we're not changing the value of what we're comparing, we are changing the measurement that we're using. Instead of measuring in feet, we'll measure in inches. Instead of measuring in inches, we'll measure in feet. Let's see if we can find a pattern. Convert each measure. We want to convert 63 feet into yards, so we want to know how many yards 63 feet is equivalent to. These are your two key terms, feet and yards. I want you to try to picture that. On a small scale, imagine a ruler. On a larger scale, a yardstick. So feet would be smaller than a yard. So right now we are converting a smaller unit to a larger unit. We'll keep that up there for a while. So let's see what happens when we convert a smaller unit to a larger unit. That means that if we're starting with feet, or the smaller picture, converting to yards, if we have 63 of these, we're not going to need as many yards. So we're going to need to end up with a smaller number. So we multiply by the conversion factor. How do we know how to set this up? We know there are 3 feet in a yard. We are trying to change feet into yards. So we need feet to be able to cancel. So if you think of this as a fraction, feet need to be in the opposite position of the fraction, numerator and denominator. So you'll see that the feet label cancels out. Now look at what we have. We have 63 times 1 divided by 3. That really just ends up being 63 divided by 3, which is 21 yards. So 63 feet is equal to 21 yards. So to summarize what we did, when we went from a smaller unit to a larger unit, we essentially divided. It's not necessary for you to show all of these steps previously. If you can show 63 divided by 3 equals 21, that's good. I'm going to keep that top right corner up there for a while. When you are setting these up, if you're setting it up with multiplication, make sure that you put the units you're converting in the numerator and the units you're converting from in the denominator. That's only for a one-step conversion. That may change in a two-step. Okay, let's change meters to centimeters. So let's try to visualize this. Again, you have a meter stick, so that's fairly long. And then you have a really small piece of that, which would be a centimeter. So now we're starting with the meter stick. or large unit, converting to a smaller one. So if we need 5.2 meters, we're going to need a lot more centimeters. So you need to start by setting up your conversion factor. Well, remember, cent means 100. When you talk about centuries, that's 100 years. When you talk about cents in a dollar, 100 cents would be a dollar. So 5.2 meters times 10 centimeters over 1 meter. Meters cancel. Look at what we ended up doing. When we went from a larger unit to a smaller unit, so now we're doing the reverse. This time we needed to get a larger number, and so we had to multiply. So to save you some steps, as long as you know the units are smaller or larger, you can go straight to multiplying or dividing. So 5.2 meters is equal to 520 centimeters. Let's try pounds and ounces. So if we look closely and try to figure out if we have larger or smaller, pounds would be larger than ounces. There are 16 ounces in a pound. So we're converting, so we're going to end up multiplying because it's going to take more ounces than pounds. So we end up with 128 ounces is equal to 8 pounds. These are some other customary and metric conversions. You don't need to write these down. You can certainly look them up, search anything that you need to find those. And those are approximate, so they are rounded. Okay, let's take a look at this one and see what we need to do. So we have Owen, who is 6 feet tall. To the nearest whole number, what is his height in centimeters? So we're looking to round to a whole number. We need a conversion factor. Oh, look at what we have here. We are converting from feet to centimeters. We do not have a direct conversion for that. We do have a conversion to inches and centimeters. So if we can change feet to inches and then inches to centimeters, we're good to go. So this is all set up ahead of time. You could do this step by step, but this is showing you right away what's going to happen. To change feet to inches, we needed to have feet in opposite positions. And then to change inches to centimeters, we needed a second conversion factor with inches in opposite positions. So those units are going to cancel out. So we are only left with centimeters. How do we know where our numbers go? Well, we know that in 1 foot there are 12 inches, and in 1 inch there's 2.54 centimeters, which we saw on the previous screen. Now we just multiply, and how did we do that? We just multiplied straight across those three numbers, these three numbers, and we end up with a whole number of 183 centimeters. We're going to pause here. Don't feel the need to fill everything out right now, as you will do part 2, and then after part 2 you'll be sure to fill in the other parts of your notes.